business life. Okay, Richard, how are you? How is it going?
I'm great. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Thanks, same to you. I'm doing great, and I'm trying to compile an article about, you know, pedagogy, education, and around this issue.
Okay.
And I'm apply for Canada. I'm trying to apply, send some article about teaching to the Canada. Maybe, I'm seeking for a scholarship in Canada. I wanna
Great.
go there, and I have many article, Richard, about the teaching. I just
Great.
focus on the motivation always. Yeah, one of my professors, I can remember, called me Mr. Motivation, because most of my article was about motivation. It is I think it is crucial and play an important role in learning everything. Yeah, a lot of things.
Not just in learning.
The motivation, yeah, of course, the motivation is behind everything, I think. We just won't go, do something, or just we won't deal with anything just because of our motivation, I think. Okay, Richard, as you told me in the last...
In English, we say, when there's a will, where there's a will, there's a way. So if you're motivated,
yeah, there is a will, there is a way. Yeah, of course. That is just point to the motivation. Okay, Richard, as we told you at the last session, we are about to set a live about the conditional sentences and just different, just kind of motivation, just conditional sentence we have got. And first of all, let's get started with you, and you start the motivation, because you suggested this idea to me, okay?
Okay, so we are talking about the conditional today. And conditionals are really when we're linking one thought to another. Now, maybe that's because of a certain condition or a circumstance, or maybe it's just an imaginary thing. So let's get into them. In English, there are 4 conditionals, or there are 4 main conditionals. Now, the easiest way to think of it is there is one present conditional, there are 2 future conditionals, and there is one past conditional. So let me explain the easiest one first. We call it the zero conditional. I'll give you an example. When water reaches 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Or if you eat too much, you get fat. Now, we use this zero conditional for facts, things which are 100% true all the time. So, if water reaches 100 degrees C, it boils. It's the same where you live, it's the same where I live, it's the same today, it was the same last week, it was the same 1,000 years ago. It's true for everybody.
Richard, yes, we can call it the structure, okay, because we are not a native speaker, or just we don't concern as a second language, and this is our foreign language. That's why we just concern the the structure. We should say F plus.
Oh, I'm getting there.
Yeah,
I'm getting there. Let me explain just why we use it first, because it is important. So, for example, if you eat too much, you get fat. It's the same for you. It's the same for me. It's the same for everybody. Now, the structure of the zero conditional is if plus present simple, present simple. If water reaches is the verb, 100 degrees C, it boils. Boils is the verb as well. If plus present simple, present simple. So that's a real easy one. That's the first one you will use, the present conditional, or we sometimes call it the zero conditional. Now, the next one is, let me talk about the future conditionals, because I mentioned there are 2 future conditionals. So the first one we have is what we call the first conditional. Now, the first conditional, we use it when we're talking about future actions that are A, realistic, B, possible, or C, probable. If I have time tomorrow, I will go running. Or if I have the money at the end of the month, I will buy some new trainers. So the construction of this is if plus present simple, future simple. If I have time tomorrow, present simple, I have time tomorrow, I will go running. Future simple, will go running. Okay? Now, like I said, we use this for future actions which are realistic, possible, or probable, because tomorrow, if I have time, I will go running. How long does it take to go running? 1 hour. Okay, I think I can find 1 hour tomorrow. It's quite realistic. Or if I have the money at the end of the month, I'll buy some new trainers. How much do a pair of new trainers cost? I don't know, 100 euros. Yeah, I probably have 100 euros at the end of this month. It's a realistic situation for me. So first conditional, future actions, realistic, possible, probable. If plus present simple, future simple. But if we're talking about a future action that is maybe not so realistic or probable or possible or just straight imaginary, we can use what we call the second conditional or the second future conditional. For example, remember I said if I have the time tomorrow, I will go running. That's because I can go running for 1 hour. 1 hour, I think I can find it. But I might say something like this. If I had the time, I would learn to play the violin. If I had the time, if plus past simple, would plus present simple. I would learn to play the violin. Because like I said, 1 hour to go running tomorrow, that's realistic, that's possible. Learning the violin takes a lot more than 1 hour. It takes maybe 2,000 hours. And in my life at the moment, it's just not possible because I'm a busy person. I have lots of students. I just don't have the amount of time to learn the violin. So for me, it's not very possible. Or remember, I said, if I have the money at the end of the month, I will buy some new trainers because I probably will have enough money to buy some new trainers at the end of the month. If I had the money, I would buy a Ferrari, but it's not very realistic that in the future I will have the money to buy a Ferrari because they're very expensive. So it's all about how possible or probable is this future action. If it's possible, probable, realistic, it's first conditional, if plus present simple, future simple. If it's not very possible, probable, or realistic, it's the second conditional, if plus past simple, would plus present simple. And there's actually a second usage for this second conditional. We can use a very famous form to give advice. And we say, if I were you, I would. Okay? So if I'm giving advice to someone, if I were you, I would. For example, maybe Salman, you say, oh, I think I want to maybe go to another country on holiday this summer. I want to go somewhere. Richard, where do you think I should go? And I would say, if I were you, I would go to Italy. Because in Italy, you have great food, you have great history, you have great art, you have nice people, you have great beaches, you have great mountains. So if I were you, I would plus present simple verb. Okay? So they're the two future conditionals.
Yeah, Richard, we can just kill a bird with one stone. I just can remember the proverb.
Kill two birds with one stone?
One stone, okay. Here we can just explain the future in the past. Yes, would plus have or had to. Okay, so
this is what we call the third conditional. It's probably the most difficult to remember. It's also where we're looking back at the past and reimagining a different result. For example,
yes,
we've got a very famous story of the Titanic. Salman, what happened to the Titanic?
Yeah, it was sinking in the water when he was in England because he crashed the iceberg, and
right. So it hit an iceberg, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Of course.
As we all know, It hit an iceberg and it sank to the bottom of the ocean. But if the Titanic hadn't hit an iceberg, it would have arrived in New York because it was going to New York. So it's like I'm looking at this situation in the past and going, well, if this situation, this different result. So we use what we call if plus past perfect. Had plus past participle. If the Titanic had not hit an iceberg, would plus present perfect. It would have arrived in New York. Okay, so it's like if plus past perfect, would plus present perfect. If the Titanic hadn't hit an iceberg, it would have arrived in New York. Or imagine there's a situation where I had an exam and I failed the exam because I didn't study. Well, I might say something like, if I had studied more, I would have passed the exam. If plus past perfect, if I had studied more, would have passed the exam. Would plus present perfect, I would have passed the exam. Okay? There's also one other thing we can go through. Sorry, go on if you want to say something.
Okay, just we can use another word in a state of if, in case. Okay, this grammar point sometime bring up, in some tests and just for IELTS or TOEFL and so on. There is a question. We can use. Can we use the if in a state of, or just can we use in case in a state of if? For example.
Not exactly. In case is more. It's more a preventative measure. Okay.
Yes.
So, for example, imagine especially if you live in Britain, because it rains every day, especially in Manchester. Imagine if I'm at home and somebody, my sister's at home as well, and she says, "Oh, I'm going out. I'm going to the shop, or I'm going to meet some friends." I might say, "Take an umbrella in case it rains." Okay, because we use "in case" as a precaution for an action we don't want, like the rain. So take an umbrella in case it rains. Okay, so it's not exactly like if. We can, in this case, we could say take an umbrella if it rains, but in case is better because it's this precautionary measure. So it's more, I would recommend if you're using the conditional, use if or when. We can use when sometimes as well, but 90% of the time it's if.
Yeah, what about, we didn't just pose this issue and didn't, forecast to, pose this grammar point even, like dangling participant that is catch my eye sometime, and we have problem with this structure sometime, or causative sentences. Is there any good way or good method to explain this grammar point, dangling participant, that is always come for grammar point, just grammar tests like entrance examination? We have concours, we call it concours. How can you explain this grammar point?
Can you give me an example sentence, please?
For example, ringing the doorbell, I was studying my lesson. Yeah, you can hear it. At the same time, somebody's ring my bell. Ringing the doorbell, I was just setting alive, okay? That is really somebody's ringing our doorbell.
So in that case, I would probably... Right.
Yeah,
I mean, this is not so common in the language, but I would probably use something like as, right? So you're using, and we spoke about this in a previous live where we talked about these time structures. So things like as, like this is happening as this is happening. So like as I was starting my live, the doorbell rang, or someone was ringing the doorbell, or while. When we use while, we're saying, well, as this action. So while she was cooking, I was watching television. Or during, we can use it at the same time. During that time, during my time in London, I had a very difficult time making friends or something like that. So one of these time structures is probably your best friend in these situations. And also remember using the right tense as well. We talked about this in a previous live where we talked about how to use the past continuous to talk about two actions happening at the same time. While she was cooking, I was talking on the phone. Or to talk about something like the past conditional, saying, okay, this action was happening, and then this next action in the past simple stopped this first action. I was watching TV when the phone rang. Okay, so this phone ringing, it stopped this action because I get up and I go and answer the phone and I stop watching television. So this action is stopped because of this interruption. Okay.
Okay, right. Okay, Richard, for the next session or the next live, we're going to talk about the challengeable or challenge structure for non-native speaker. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, we could. Well, there's a lot of them, so you probably have a better idea of what you want me to explain. But yeah, no, certainly send me a message during the week, and we can go through those definitely.
Yeah, just because due to I'm a no-native speaker and just I can understand them or just more complicated structures. Richard, as a line, let's pose the beginner, because the somebody who are just the learners who are in the advanced or intermediate, they may have any problem with learning, but we have problem with beginners sometimes, and just sometimes they disappointed or let down about learning English, and they have problem. I just what could you tell me what is the best source of material for learners? I want to talk about it, books on pamphlets and so on. What kind of book do you suggest for them? Just Pocket? Have you read the Pocket or not? Pocket and Chinese talk and
I really think one of a book is really important because it's going to really be your base. Now, if you've got the book, okay, yes, you can try and watch some videos online and you can listen to some lives and you can maybe, kind of study some music, but the book is really good because it's going to teach you exactly what you need to know for your level. So at a basic level, it's going to teach you some of the basic tenses and the word formation and the word structures or the sentence structure. I really recommend Headway. Headway is one that I use quite a lot with beginner students because I think it's quite interesting. It's got some interesting topics, and it explains these sentence structures and grammar and vocabulary in quite a simple way. So I recommend Headway. I think you've got a bit more experience with some of the different textbooks out there because you use quite a lot of them. But in my experience, Headway is quite a good one. So if there are any beginner speakers out there looking to buy their own book, yeah, Headway is a pretty good one.
Yeah, do you know that, Richard, we are the learners do not even the alphabet, and they'll start to learn alphabet even, the first friend. Have you read the first friend? Have you ever studied the first friend or not? That is so, is a genius for the beginner or the learners who start with the, the alphabet. Just, they don't know even the alphabet. They can just, at the first time they learning through the, audio or sometime just start with the learn.
Now I can, yeah. So
that is deal with just the alphabet and audio learning some word and structure. Have you ever read it or not?
No, but I've had to learn a couple of different alphabets in my time. I learned the Russian alphabet because I speak a little bit of Russian. I learned the Korean alphabet when I lived in Korea. And
yes, just Richard, with learning the foreign language like Russia and so on, you can just imagine how hurtful learning, our beginner is. We can just imagine. First of all, when you start to learn a language, the problem is with some pronunciation and learning through the audio. And what do you think? Is it possible to just learning through the audio or just learning the alphabet and so on? What do you think? Could you imagine a beginner who have problem with even the pronunciation? What do you think, or what do you suggest for them?
Yeah, I think so. But I think also, look, everybody has problem with pronunciation when they first start learning a language. You know, when you learn to swim, you don't learn and you don't practice your technique perfectly before you start swimming, do you? You learn a little bit, then you go in the swimming pool and you start swimming. It's the same with language. Look, you will make mistakes in pronunciation, in vocabulary, in grammar. We all do. It just happens. I make mistakes now. I've lived in France for 8 years. I still make mistakes sometimes. It's okay. It's no problem. So I think maybe
Okay.
have that mentality when you first start.